All right. So today I am here to share some stories. I want to share some personal stories, some client stories, experiences that hopefully this audience will have moments of, I totally get that. I've been there. I've done that. Or I never, ever want to do that. Hopefully we can build to something that's more along the lines of, wow, we could do something like that. And yes, that's an idea I can take in action with my business, with my clients, in my personal life. I'm going to talk today. The topics are somewhat familiar. There's some integrity. There's a little bit about facing uncertainty and building towards the topic of the day, leveraging the power of ideas. It's a fun ride, but we don't always know where it starts. It's 2018. I'm standing next to the love of my life, Dave, and he's got his arm around me and he whispers into my ear, please don't die. Well, that's the plan. I'm here and I have no intention of going anywhere else. But 30 minutes later, I have Adonis strapped to my back and he is screaming at the top of his lungs over the wind, are you ready? No, I'm not ready. This experience began 5 years earlier with Dave's son, Zach, on his birthday saying, when I turn 21, I want to jump out of an airplane. I was relatively new in the relationship, and I said, Zach, I want to do that with you. It sounds like fun. Dave looked like a cartoon character. You could see the steam coming out of his ears as his eyes rolled in the back of the head, and he shook his head and he walked away from me. Later that night, he says, Lisa, you have to understand, my son is a planner, and you just made a commitment. I was like, whatever. He's a teenager. He's going to forget all about that. We're years away from that happening. The next year on Zach's birthday, hey, Lisa, 4 more years until we jump out of a plane. Hey, Lisa, 3 more years until we jump out of a plane. Dude, time out. It is your 18th birthday. You do not need my assistance to go skydiving. The legal documentation you can sign for yourself and you won't get in trouble with your mom or your dad. You're on your own, buddy. He was devastated. In that moment, I felt like dirt. And he says, Lisa, it has nothing to do with legal documents. I want to do this with you when I'm 21 so that when we're done, we can go to the bar and have a tequila shot and celebrate living. Yeah. I want to jump out of an airplane without a parachute. I have just devastated a young man and his hopes and his dreams. 3, 2, 1. I'm free falling. Everything is moving so fast I can't breathe. I literally physically cannot breathe. The chute opens and everything comes to a stop. I can see everything and it's beautiful. This is one of the greatest experiences of my life. The ground is approaching. Adonis reminds me that I need to pick my feet up because to land, we're bouncing across the dirt on my bottom. Yeah, landings aren't easy, but they are important. And as they shake off the equipment, there's Dave, there's Zach, and they're holding shot glasses. And we are celebrating and having our moment of, yep, we lived. In the story, there's a series of moments that matter. And in these moments that matter, there are traits that we need to bring forward to our life, to our business. In that first moment, and that first piece is about accountability. I flippantly made a comment in passing to a teenage boy that was so meaningful to him that by considering that I wasn't going to honor it, I devastated him. And so it was important to honor and hold on to that commitment. We also learned in that experience that words actually do matter. And when I was talking to him about legalese and all of that, I was tearing down hopes and dreams. And there's also the importance of embracing uncertainty, that jumping out of an airplane, experiencing that free fall and living in the moment. I did not know what was going to come from that. But having the ability to embrace that moment changes everything in my relationship with a stepson. In this experience, right, there's uncertainty, and sometimes there's a bumpy landing or two along the way. But learning to embrace those feelings of uncertainty, to push through them, allow us to search for those opportunities where we can cry out for change, where we can seek happiness. And sometimes in embracing that uncertainty, we have moments of real clarity. It's 2009. I'm in my mid-30s. And I have my ticket to swipe to get on the roller coaster. I take my seat, the arms come down, and I grab hold, and I'm white knuckling it, and we haven't even started moving yet. I take a deep breath, and I prepare myself as we start rolling, and you hear the clack, clack, clack. We're climbing, and I know that at the top, we're going to take off, and the twists and the turns, and I have to take another breath and steady myself because this roller coaster is moving full speed ahead, whether I like it or not, and whether or not I feel sick to my stomach or not. I have to take another breath and shake off this reverie because it's 8 a.m. Monday morning, and I've been called to the CEO's office. And I'm knocking on his door, but I have to tell you, I am not excited to be here. So you understand, Greg is a phenomenal leader. He is charming. He is suave. He is inviting. He has the best Texas drawl you've ever heard. He is a Southern gentleman. I'm not buying it today. I don't know why I'm here, but he ushers me in and I take a seat. He's pacing around the office and he starts talking and I hear, wah, 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 wah. Lisa, why do we make things so hard? Wah, 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 wah. I think we might need to reorg your department. Wah, 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 wah. We're a startup after all. I'm nodding, I'm smiling, but I'm not actually hearing what he's talking about. And with every fiber of my being, I do everything humanly possible to get out of there as quickly as I can. I walk across the street to grab a cup of coffee, and this is my dream job. I have been brought in to a startup that is on the cusp of taking off. They brought me in to align their projects so that they can be more effective, so that they can grow and they can scale. And as I'm walking with my coffee in my hand, I turn and I look at the building. It is April in Tempe, Arizona. The sun is shining and it is a big glass building and it is glistening in the sunlight. And all I see is the roller coaster to hell. Little voice inside my head says, "What are you doing?" The other little voice says, "Living her dream life. This is what she's always wanted." If this is the dream, I'd hate to see the nightmare. This dialogue is going on back and forth inside of my head. I want this job. This is my security. This is 401k. This is an opportunity for a life-changing event, for an IPO, a purchase, or whatever the startup is going to do. And I'm absolutely miserable. A little voice inside my head starts challenging. Why do you have to do it? You could do anything you want to do. I'm thinking to myself, I'm single. I don't have any kids. I have nothing to lose if I try. In that moment, the idea of L Cubed Consulting was born. The idea that I can walk away from somebody else's roller coaster and build my own took shape in my head. It was a really scary thought because I honestly believed with every fiber of my being that I was totally, utterly risk averse. In that moment, I got the opportunity to challenge that thought. And I had the idea that I could build and design my own roller coaster, that I could take control of my work life and my personal life. And in doing that, I have the ability to align the work that I do with my personal values so that as my roller coaster matures, I can enjoy the ride. As an entrepreneur, you may know that the ride is not always comfortable, and we don't actually always have the types of control that we might want to have. But if we're patient with the ride and we accept that we can't force the outcomes, there are those moments when we can really make great things happen. And then there are the moments when everything goes off the rail and we have absolutely no control whatsoever. It's March 2020. Our vibrant three-dimensional world has shifted to what we're in today, our 2D Zoom world. My business is now in this space. This is my office. And if you've been watching, you've seen me in this office for 2.5 years. In these first days of March, I had the opportunity to share some time with a client, and they were facing some harsh realities. Sarah, the CEO, has brought together her leadership team into this space for the first time ever. They don't understand what Zoom is. They don't understand Teams. You can see frenetic energy happening as everybody's also really uncertain about what's happening in the world. You can see a guy, he's making a whole lot of noise, right? Trying to get some attention. Sarah says, "Okay, Brian, you want to say something?" "Brian, you're on mute." "Can you hear me now?" Yes, Brian, we can. He goes, "Okay, so I am in the distribution warehouse. I have 15,000 square feet of food, and you're telling me we're shutting down for 2 weeks. Do you know how bad this place is going to smell when this is all done?" Sarah laughs and she says, "Brian, that's what we're here to talk about today. What are we going to do in the next 2 weeks?" He says, "Well, Sarah, I've got ideas. I've got some great ideas." "Okay, Brian, why don't you share with us?" He says, "Well, we're a food distribution company. I have all of this food, and if all businesses are closing, people are going to be hungry." He says, "Vulnerable people are going to be very hungry." You can watch all of his peers in their box nodding their heads. And he says, "I think we should do what we always do. We need to deliver food, just to different places." Sarah smiles. She's actually beaming. "Brian, that is a brilliant idea, and that is exactly what we're here to talk about today. As a group, we're going to come up with ideas. We need to run our business differently for the next 2 weeks. We need to do things that we have never considered doing before. And you have given us a perfect example, Brian, of something we can experiment with. I want you to take the next 2 days and figure out how you're going to do what you just suggested we do. And then I want you to go and do it. And in 3 or 4 days, we'll come back as a group here again, and you can share your results. Because the things that work, we're going to do across the country. And the things that didn't work, we won't." She pauses and she looks at the kind of the rest of the group and she says, Brian jump-started our innovation engine. We're here today to talk about that because we need to run our business differently. Sarah and I have been talking about an innovation engine for months, and she was convinced that her old school company would never in a million years be interested in innovating. The world changed and forced her hand. And in those 2 weeks, they did everything they never thought they were capable of doing. And it all started with a very simple experience. And it started with one person and an idea. And from that idea, it grew into the prototype, Brian and his first shot at making an attempt at delivering food in a new and a different way. From that experience, the team learned. And there were things that Brian did that failed famously, and everybody had a good laugh and an opportunity to learn through that. But at the end of it, they had a new process that they could embed into their culture that would allow an old school business to do things in a new and different way in perpetuity. This is the story that leads into why we're here and in the conversation that we want to have today, because innovating is something that all businesses should do, regardless of the size. Sarah's food distribution company is a national, huge footprint, but solopreneurs can use this process as easily as a large team can. I want to set the context a little bit for a second on recession proofing. There's traditional wisdom. And for the sake of this audience, I'm going to say where the traditional wisdom comes from. Old white men. And it is wisdom that has been taught and nurtured for decades. And I'm going to read off some of that conventional wisdom because it is not something I want you to read and see on the screen because it is not that important to our conversation today. But here are some of those things. You need to create a cash flow plan, assess your workforce needs, operate within your budget, build up your employees' skills, create a business emergency fund before the recession strikes, pay down your debt, find ways to cut back, reduce overhead, modify your offerings, niche down, consider pivoting. That's all reasonable business advice. Most of it we should be doing already. It's not new and it's certainly not inspiring. But during recessions, great things happen. In 1975, Microsoft was founded during a recession. In 1982, Electronic Arts, the video game company that brings us The Sims and Madden Sports, was founded. In 2008, 2009, Airbnb, Slack, WhatsApp, Square, Uber, Pinterest, Instagram, all of these businesses were founded during economic downturns. And the key to that happening and the key to that success is not about thinking about what we do and how we run our business. It is absolutely and positively about being customer-centric. And it is absolutely about thinking about what our customers need and how we can help them solve their problems. And the easiest way to start that thinking is to go back to Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. Many of us have businesses that probably speak to that highest level of the pyramid in that self-actualization space, where we're speaking at conferences, we provide training, we are building up those components. But if we understand how those tools and those techniques feed the business leaders and the business owners' safety needs, we are immediately driving down to the space where they are making the decisions in hard times. I am not a college professor, and I am not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on Maslow in this conversation. But it is that key to empathizing and understanding the customer that will differentiate recession proofing from just trying to run an effective business financially. The innovation engine is the key to this success, and it is the key to our ability to adapt, to thrive, and it's a 3-step process. We need to be able to ideate, we need to prototype, and we need to learn things and move on. Ideation does not have to be a painful process, and it does not have to be a big one. It starts with a list of ideas. It's something that we can do by ourselves, and we can just write out our list, or we can pull together a team of people we trust and respect and go through gathering the ideas. The fun of this part of the exercise is this is not about quality. This is a quantity effort. The more ideas, the better. And as soon as you think you're out of ideas, I challenge you to get 5 more. And they need to be big and they need to be crazy, because the crazy ones are often the most brilliant ones that allow us to find something that we never thought we could do. When we have that list and we pull people together, we want to look for the ones to play with. I personally like and challenge my clients to pick the ones that they're afraid of doing, that they think they can't achieve, so that we can prototype that idea out. And prototyping is not a huge investment. This is not a technology spend. This is not research and development. This is a thought exercise. How many people have ever in their professional career, when we actually socialized, pulled a cocktail napkin at a bar and sketched out an idea or a list of thoughts? That is the original business prototype. And that's as techie as it absolutely needs to be. With that idea, you need to test it with the group. What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? How can we overcome them? And in that, as we have that opportunity to say, this might actually be plausible, that's when we really test it, right? So that we can learn from the prototype and move forward. In that learning opportunity, there are things that are going to fail gloriously. Learn from that. Do not penalize it. That is where we get the next level of effectiveness and efficiency so that we can do the next thing bigger and bolder. This process is about doing what works and building on success. It's a foundation that anyone can do with a group as small as 1 or 2, and you can do it in a room with 20 or 30 people. This webinar was an introduction into the idea of the innovation engine. I do this as a consulting practice. I do this in my coaching with clients. And in December, I am actually for the first time offering and doing it as a virtual workshop. And so coming out of this experience with this group, there is an offer, always open for a one-on-one conversation. And I'll put the links in chat, and Linda will share them out with everybody after the fact. But the one-on-one call with this, or members of this community, is always open. But the Innovation Engine workshop is December 1st, and it is an experiment to see, much like everybody else has been talking about, that opportunity for taking a message to a larger, more diverse audience. I've always done this work inside of a client environment, and I want to play with it with brilliant minds from different perspectives and different industries and different experiences to see if we can't even elevate the creativity further. And that really is, let me give you the last screen. This is my contact information. I appreciate you all being here. And I'm going to stop the share and we can continue. I want to open up the conversation to the group. If there are any questions, any dialogue, anything that we want to wrap up in the last few minutes, I'm happy to continue chatting with everyone.